Hey guys, Real 2K Insider here, and I want to break down the November 4th NBA 2K22 roster update even further. In my first video, I broke things down by team. Now, I want to break things down by position. Color coding. Red means the player moved up in rating in the update. Blue means the player moved down. Yellow means that the player has yet to play this season, so they don't have any stats to compare as of yet. So, just looking at the overall list, and by the way, these stats are from Basketball Reference. They're accurate as of November 4th, the day that the roster came out. They're basically what 2K used in order to come up with their rating changes. So, and white, of course, means that the player did not have a rating change, and we're going to see how accurate. A lot of these players, I think, actually should have dropped, and 2K gave them a free pass. So, just looking at the general top 10 to 20. The top 10 was basically unchanged. Jimmy Butler moved in, Dame Lillard and James Harden moved out, basically. And we can see just from looking at the player efficiency ratings and true shooting percentages of the various players, there's really only 4 players right now that are playing at an MVP caliber level. And I would say that's Jimmy Butler, Nikola Vuchevich, Kevin Durant, and Giannis Antetokounmpo. Pretty much everybody else in the top 10. I guess Anthony Davis didn't regress. He's playing better than he did last year. But Luka, Embiid, LeBron, and Steph Curry, they are all performing worse than what they did the year before. Steph Curry is shooting it. He's only shooting 41% from the field. The Warriors are 7-1, but they've been doing it despite Curry not shooting at his usual standard. So obviously they gave him a free pass, but I thought it was just interesting with players like James Harden. You can see he's been reasonably, he's nowhere near what he was the last few years, but he's pretty comparable to Luka Doncic, and Luka more or less got a free pass. He's had the same struggles as Harden. He's not shot the ball well. He's not getting to the free throw line either. They both have comparable assist rates. They're both good rebounders. So he would be an example of a player that I also would have dropped. Embiid is not playing at the same level that he did last year when he was basically neck and neck with Jokic in their games played. There's a clear, he's not scoring the ball anywhere near as efficiently right now. He might be dealing with some injuries in the background. But, just that those are things that kind of seem obvious looking at once you can look at the players individually. LeBron is in probably the worst stretch of his career. He hasn't played like this since his rookie season over any 6-game stretch over the last 15, 18 years. So it might be time to start dropping his rating as well once he comes back. And aside from that, you see there's a lot more reds than blues. Typically 2K will underrate players, and they're very slow to downgrade them as well. They tend to give players more rope than they deserve a lot of the time. Basketball production is usually pretty consistent, unlike a sport like, say, baseball, where you can have a very hot month where you can't miss the ball, and then you'll have another month where you just can't hit the ball. So basketball generally not nearly as erratic as that. Performances are very consistent, which is what I've always loved about when I do little stat analysis like this. So a lot more players went up in rating than went down, and we're going to see if some of the players that went down, maybe they should have gone down a little further. Let's head over to the point guards and check them all out. So first thing, Ja Morant. He's been the best point guard in the league, and it hasn't really been particularly close. As mentioned earlier, Curry struggling with his shot, but Ja, great playmaker as well, really good defensive player, and he's shooting the ball extremely well. 2K bumped him up 4 points from an 85 to an 89. When you compare his rating to guys like Harden, Lillard, and Luka Doncic, to me, there's no question that he should be at least a 90, and that he's in year 3. Russell Westbrook and Derrick Rose, they also made all NBA leaps in year 3. In fact, Derrick Rose was the MVP in his 3rd season, and they were both all of them 22 years of age. So it looks like Ja's on pace to, at the very least, make the All NBA team. One of the 3 teams. So, yeah, I would absolutely push him up. And if players like Harden and Lillard continue to struggle, it seems like a lock for him to make the All-Star team. If we looked at the top 3 point guards in the West, it would be Ja, Curry, and then Chris Paul, with Dame Lillard at present falling off the list. And the 4th best point guard in the league would be DeJounte Murray, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Those are your runner-ups. And I guess, technically Luka. I'm sure, listen, Luka's going to come around. But, again, he hasn't played like an all-star either as of yet. But I would expect Curry, Luka, and Ja to be my all-star picks. I'm not sure if Chris Paul is going to get the minutes. But Chris Paul, you see that his rating actually dropped. And I don't understand why. He was a 90. He went down to an 89. But he's been playing great. So it doesn't make sense to be dropping him when, like, Harden and Lillard clearly struggling. Chris Paul, nah, he's basically the same as what he was last year. We've had a new rule change that has tried to restrict point guards from getting away with the nonsense to like trick the referees into fouls. James Harden was known for that. Dame Lillard, he was very difficult to guard because if you touched him, he would go to the free throw line. Same with Luka Doncic. Trae Young, of course, was a poster boy for that as well. Chris Paul, he's getting to the line more than all the other point guards in the NBA right now. So clearly the rules haven't affected him at all. And he has the best assist rate in the NBA and is always one of the best defensive players. So I straight up do not understand this rating drop. This is a major mistake, if you ask me. I would have left Chris Paul at a 90. I'd have both these guys at 90s. And Harden and Lillard, I would have dropped. Both were 94s, or Harden was a 95 and Lillard was a 94. I would also have dropped them even further to like an 90. And then if they continue to struggle, that's when you start dropping them to like 89, 88, etc. And I guess ditto for Luka also. Like, there's no way that he should be a 94 right now based on what he's been shooting and that he's not getting to the line, etc. as much. Looking at the East point guards, Trae Young, Trae Young, LaMelo Ball, and James Harden would be your top 3, I guess. When we go down to the 83 overall point guards, we've got Spencer Dinwiddie and Malcolm Brogdon. They're basically performing at the level of James Harden right now. So that's worth noting. I think to me that means that both of these guys went up from an 82. I would have them in the 85 range. And bring Harden a little closer down to like 89, I think. And Drew Holiday, of course, he has been out with injury. I've got minutes played for these guys, so I'm not going to read too much into. Obviously, he's not going to have an 83 true shooting for the entire season. But we see Russell Westbrook. He has struggled a lot. He was an 86 and dropped to an 84. And he's not playing very well at all. But again, when you look at like how high up Dame Lillard also is, they're pretty comparable, but Dame more or less got a pass compared to Westbrook. Ditto for De'Aaron Fox. De'Aaron Fox has been atrocious so far this season. I believe he was an 85 and just went down to an 83. He's playing like a 79 right now, I want to say. I would have. The Kings are winning despite him right now, rather than because of him. His assist rate is down a bit, and his shooting efficiency has been awful. Taking and missing a lot of threes. He's like 13% on threes right now, I think. And then in the mid tier, we've got Mike Conley, Derrick Rose, Kemba Walker. I'm okay with these guys all where they're at. Kemba Walker, he's kind of established himself as like his assist rate is way down. Julius Randle's more or less like the point forward for the Knicks. So Rose and Kemba have diminished assist rates, but it's also helped their scoring. Both are shooting very well, particularly from 3-point range. So that is a trade-off. Kemba's getting easier 3-point looks probably than he's had at any other point in his career. So I would look for these guys to hang steady. Worth noting, Tyler Hero is at point guard in my list. These are my positions rather than 2K's. I have him at point guard because he's been backing up Kyle Lowry throughout the year. And, he's playing both guard positions right now, but specifically he backs up Kyle Lowry, and the Heat don't have another point guard in their rotation. Once Victor Oladipo returns from injury, if I had Hero at 2 guard, they would have 3 2 guards, and Lowry is the only point guard. And I figure that once Oladipo comes back, he'll be backing up Duncan Robinson, or maybe even starting over Duncan Robinson, because Duncan Robinson hasn't exactly been having a great year so far. So I figured I wanted to distinguish things like that. Once I get to the shooting guards, maybe I'll just copy and paste Hero in so we can just compare. But him and Rose are the top 2 backup point guards in the NBA, if we're going to count him there. And we can see their stats are pretty similar. True shooting, PER is the same. They have comparable assist rates as well. Hero's taking a little more shots per game, 28 usage versus Rose's 25, but Rose has also been getting a lot more defensive production. 2% steal rate, 1.7 block, whereas Hero has not put together any defensive stats as of yet. And of course, Hero is a light triple-double threat. Grabs like 7 or 8 rebounds a game, something like that. So I'm cool with him being rated an 82, the boost that 2K gave him. When we get to the kind of lower end of the point guards, the bottom 10 of the starters, we got Fred VanVleet sharing the same rating with Darius Garland, Alonzo Ball, Kyle Lowry. And, I said that VanVleet should have gone up in rating, and this kind of really sells it for me. He's been playing great. He's a big part of why they are winning ball games. Should be the highest rated player on the team. So I think this makes it pretty clear that he's a point or 2 underrated. And again, if we look at how bad De'Aaron Fox has been relative to some of these guys, I would definitely have Fox in the same tier as Kyle Lowry and D'Angelo Russell, who've also struggled. Lowry's been better since the update, so I'm sure that his rating will go back up. D'Angelo Russell has been awful. He's getting outplayed by Patrick Beverley right now, who we see down here once we go down a little further. He's been shooting very well. He's a better defender than D'Angelo Russell, and his assist rate is way up. He's been utilized as like a 3-and-D kind of Derek Fisher-styled point guard for a long time between the Rockets and the Clippers, but now it looks like he's actually being asked to do some playmaking, and if his pass ratings are going to go way up, that means his rating is he'll probably be like an 80 overall in short order. Let's see, Alonzo Ball has been solid, but not really. His assist rate is down as he's not the primary playmaker on the team. They are utilizing DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine a bit, so that depresses his numbers a little bit, but his defensive production is great, and he's a catch-and-shoot three-point guy. Doesn't draw many fouls, though, it looks like. Going down to the rest of the starters, the low end, Cole Anthony, he went up in rating, ditto for Devontae Graham. Both these guys are good scorers, middling playmakers, but they they're good like second or third options, I think. And Cole Anthony is probably the best rebounding point guard in the league. Let's see, is anybody higher than 21? I guess DeJounte Murray. Okay, so second best rebounding point guard, better than James Harden, Luka Doncic. and Russell Westbrook. So that is notable for him. Dennis Schroeder, no change for him. His efficiency is as erratic as ever, but is rated higher than Marcus Smart, who he's completely fallen off. He's having a terrible year for the Celtics, so he dropped. Alex Caruso has really established himself as he's the Bulls' sixth man. Great defensive player. This is I think he's leading the league in steal rate, and he's been hitting threes at a high rate, getting to the free throw line. Solid driver. So I expect his rating will probably maintain at like a 79 throughout the year. Probably similar to whatever Beverly's rated. Jalen Brunson has been awesome, and he blew up after this after the update, I believe. So his stats right now are probably even better. Probably should be in the same bracket as a Derrick Rose or a Tyler Hero when it's all said and done. Anthony Simons has been scoring the ball really efficiently this year, but his assist rate is very low for a point guard, so that depreciates his or diminishes his rating a little bit. A player like Ricky Rubio has a great assist rate and is a good defensive player, so he's able to overcome his low offensive efficiency. Mills and Maxey go up. They're both comparable, like not really great playmakers, but they're there for some scoring. TJ McConnell went down. He's been struggling to put the ball in the basket. Ditto for Monte Morris. Davion Mitchell, his rating went up, even though he hasn't been very effective. He's basically Marcus Smart's, the next Marcus Smart. Fantastic defensive player. Well, you technically wouldn't know from his steals and blocks, but he's a great on-ball defender, has the nickname of Off Night. And Marcus Smart still getting his steals and blocks, so solid defensive player, but offensively he's fallen apart. This is his lowest assist rate in years, if not ever. Shake Milton has he should have gone up in rating, I think. He barely played, but 2K dropped a lot of other players or raised a lot of other players with comparable samples, so I don't think that's much of an excuse. Plus, he was pretty good the year before as well, and he's blown up a little bit since the update, so I expect that he'll go up in the next one. Goran Dragic hasn't been in the rotation for the Raptors at all. It's basically why he dropped, but his production in general is on par with like most of the other guys in this bracket: the Lou Williams, Lonnie Walker, DeLon Wright, George Hill, etc. Fernando Campazzo, he has not been able to put the ball in the basket, and his assist rate is not what you would expect for a... he was a wizard in Europe. Part of that is the Nuggets system, as they play so much through Joker, similar to like the Knicks with Julius Randle, how Kemba Walker and Derrick Rose have diminished assist rates. Campazzo, same deal. And Malik Monk, Rajon Rondo, Peyton Pritchard, Corey Joseph, these guys have all struggled to put the ball in the basket, so hence they drop. We see a couple guys who are putting together some solid offensive numbers. Trey Burke, not so much, very limited minutes, but Raul Neto and Tyus Jones, they've been playing really well, and they did not have their ratings touched at all. I guess you could say ditto for Elfrid Payton. And the rest, everybody else down here, kind of struggling to do much offensively. Gary Payton, the second, has been fantastic in limited minutes, and he's been even better since the update. He should have gone up just based on this. These are, because this 55 minutes is actually a substantial portion of like his career. He's only played like 500, 600 minutes in the NBA over the last like 8 years or so. So he's playing great for the Warriors, and he's in their rotation right now. Absolutely should have a higher rating than the likes of like Javon Carter and some of the other guys on the list. Dennis Smith and Trey Jones also have been pretty effective in limited minutes, so keep your eye on them. Kira Lewis, on the other hand, has not, so him not moving in rating is totally acceptable. Killian Hayes is the worst starter in the NBA by far. However, he is a starter. He should rate higher than a 71. There's plenty of other players who are not starting who have higher ratings than him and comparable production. So, I mean, that's, I think, I am not a fan of Hayes, but I think it's silly for him to be all the way down here with the third stringers and guys in the G League, etc. Delano Benton is probably the most underrated point guard on this list by far. He's taken Goran Dragic's rotation spot. 2K has him at small forward, but he's been the backup point guard, which is why I have him here. He's played 110 minutes, 60 true shooting, very good rebounder, good defensive player as well. Not really a great playmaker, but a solid finisher overall. If you look at like Tyrese Maxey, he's basically a bigger Tyrese Maxey. Where is Maxey? There we go. Yeah, okay. So that is the point guards. Yeah, let's move on to the two guards. So right off the bat, the top two guards in the NBA are sidelined right now. Some caveats to this. I guess bears noting here that James Harden, I believe in the 2K roster, is a two guard rather than a point guard. So again, I've switched his position. If you want to play around with this list, feel free to go into the doc and copy and paste the players that you want to move over to their respective lists or whatever. But I have Kyrie as the two guard as a result of that. As if he ever does suit up for the Nets again, it's going to come at the expense of Joe Harris in the rotation. Kawhi Leonard, similarly, I have him listed at shooting guard rather than small forward because Paul George is playing small forward this year rather than shooting guard like the last couple of years. When Kawhi Leonard returns from injury, it's going to come at the expense of Reggie Jackson. So that was my rationale for why I made Kawhi's position shooting guard in this update. Rather than, I feel like that makes more sense rather than switching George back to the two guard when he'll have spent probably 90-95% of the season at small forward. Plus, he's also bigger than Kawhi. And I think it's going to make sense to keep Kawhi on the perimeter as he comes back from injury anyway, rather than have him banging with bigger players, etc. But looking at the actual two guards that have played this year, Devin Booker is not really played like a 90, 51 true shooting, 18 PER, 32 usage, 26 assist rate. But, I mean, these numbers also aren't dissimilar from what Luka Doncic and James Harden have done. So, I don't know. I just feel like it's unfair to drop these guys and not drop some of the other guys who have been struggling. Ditto Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal's rating doesn't move at all. Clearly, he's been struggling with his shot in the early going. And they've been winning kind of despite him. They've been winning because all their new additions have been excellent, like the Spencer Dinwiddie, Kyle Kuzma, Montrezl Harrell, etc. So he absolutely should have dropped in rating. The best two guard in the NBA has been Zach LaVine. LaVine was better than Devin Booker last year as well. So 2K boosted his rating, but clearly I think that it's not high enough. I personally would have LaVine at like an 89 or even a 90, depending on... I'll accept him being an 89 if you drop both of these guys to like 88, 87. And Donovan Mitchell, he's also likewise played very well. 35 usage rate, so 54 true shooting isn't great, but on that kind of usage, it is pretty good, and you can see he's shooting a lot better in comparable usage than Bradley Beal. He's also a better playmaker and is generally regarded as a better defensive player. Beal's one of the worst two-guard defenders in the NBA. Jalen Brown, he went up. He's been a little erratic. He has 46-point games and then games where he struggles to put the ball in the basket and then put it together. And He's still basically efficiency on par with Zach LaVine. Not much of a playmaker, though. That's been his drawback in the NBA. But still, you can make a case for him being... he would make the All-Star team in the Eastern Conference. He was the second best shooting guard in the East. And Mitchell, very clearly the best in the West. CJ McCollum, the second best. And then third best, I guess, is between Anthony Edwards and Tyrese Halliburton, who were second and third in Rookie of the Year last year, respectively. So, interestingly enough, before we get to those guys, let's just break down the few guys. Klay Thompson will eventually come back. I might eventually make him a small forward. It's not clear who he's going to replace in the starting lineup when he comes back. If he rejoins the starting lineup, I expect that he would. He's like one of the top players in NBA history. Didn't quite make the NBA 75. He's like the 77th best player in history. I saw that jersey, thought it was pretty funny. But if he starts for Andrew Wiggins, I would change him to small forward. If Jordan Poole and Andrew Wiggins right now are battling to find out who's going to be the starter once Klay comes back. And depending on who wins out, if Poole moves to the bench, which I think he would, I think his microwave scoring would be valued there. Then we keep Klay at the 2. But if they're gonna keep Poole in the starting lineup because he just goes nuts or whatever, then it's reasonable to keep Klay or to move Klay to the 3. CJ McCollum, he's been carrying the Blazers so far offensively as Dame Lillard has really struggled. 2K did not raise his rating, but as you can see, he's not too far away from Jaylen Brown. Some of these other guys playing much better than Bradley Beal, and playing even better than Devin Booker as well. So if they did not give him any love, I would just have all those guys at an 87 overall and call it a day. And we see Anthony Edwards and Tyrese Halliburton. Very comparable production, but a huge gap in their ratings. Edwards went up 3 points in this update. Halliburton did not get touched. We can see he's got a lower usage rate than Edwards. However, seems to be a superior defensive player and, of course, is a better playmaker. Has a great AT ratio comparable to Edwards. And the Kings have also been... both teams have been winning. The Wolves have been losing a little. I think they started off like 3-2, and they've lost like 3 in a row since. But I think some of that overlaps with in the next update. So for the first 2 weeks, they've been comparable, but Halliburton got no love. Terry Rozier, they dropped his rating, but as you can see, not nearly enough. He has been awful. He's been dealing with an injury. But I absolutely would have dropped him more than 1 point based on what he's done. He's nowhere near these guys right now. Evan Fournier, he's been solid. He went up a point. We can see a lot of players are kind of like... I feel like the 2 guards also in general are just rate way too low. Pretty much all the point guards below. They messed up the formula this year with for shooting guards. Like the average point guard... The average starting point guard is an 83 in NBA 2K22, and the average starting shooting guard is 4 points lower at a 79. And all the other positions are like 81, 80, 81 is their average. So I think they botched the formula, and I feel like the 2 guards, pretty much everybody on this list should just be like a +1 to make them, in terms of like their value relative to everybody else. So that's something... just note moving, if you were to compare cross-positionally or whatever, that's why I want to break things down by position so we can just compare these guys to their peers and everything. So Cody Cunningham has been awful. Absolutely the worst 3-game start of you could possibly imagine. This is like Anthony Bennett tier. He's come around a little bit since, but I thought it was curious that they've dropped other players in this update with half as many minutes as we're going to see. So bear in mind this 80 minutes. They basically ignore that. Obviously, he's the number 1 overall pick, but I personally they could have dropped him to a 79 or something. Like that would not have been the end of the world. Just to reflect that he has really struggled in the early going. Hardaway Jr., Gary Trent, Eric Gordon, Bogdanovic, Sexton, Jordan Clarkson. These guys are all in the same range. Trent, he went up in rating. It's worth noting that they did not adjust any steal or block ratings in this update. So Gary Trent has one of the top steal rates in the NBA. His defense has been a big part of the Raptors' success, and this was not at all accounted for one iota by NBA 2K. So Trent went up 2 points in rating. However, if they had factored in both sides of the ball, as we see, he really hasn't lit it up offensively. It's been all defensively. He realistically should be in like the 80-81 tier as a result, if you were going to rate him fairly. Eric Gordon shot the ball very well. His playmaking's a little down compared to the last couple of years. He's just hanging out, trying to stay healthy and waiting for a contender to pick him up at the deadline, as the Rockets are clearly in the middle of a youth movement. Bogdanovic has been solid. I think this is actually, I'm sorry, this is incorrect. Bojan Bogdanovic went up in rating, but Bogdan Bogdanovic, the Hawks shooting guard, he went down in rating as he struggled a little bit. Last year he was averaging 16 points per game. Now he's down to 12. Efficiency isn't quite at the same level. I think his playmaking's down as well as his usage rate. Trey's been dominating the ball a little more than usual. Yeah, it's compared to last year. Oh yeah, his usage rate is way down from last year. And yep, true shooting. Yeah, playmaking. Okay, I'm correct on all accounts. Great. Colin Sexton, comparable situation for him now that he's not being asked to run the second unit. His assist rate is way lower, and despite him having a lesser offensive role, it has not improved his shooting efficiency at all. So this actually drops his effectiveness and thus his rating as a result. Jordan Clarkson, I'm baffled that his rating did not drop. He's been shooting terribly. 47 true shooting, 31 usage, 47 true shooting. This doesn't even he's been awful for the Jazz. They are winning despite him, not because of him. This is like ball hog, mega ball hog, like Westbrook territory. But he didn't drop in rating at all, which I thought was interesting. We'll just put it like that. Chris Duarte, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, both of these guys were super underrated. Duarte in particular was a 73. Alexander-Walker was a 75. And they gave both big boosts. However, they overshot, in my opinion. I think both would be reasonable at a 77 overall. You check out some of the other guys with 77s. D'Anthony Melton, Grayson Allen, Kelly Oubre Jr. That's who their production's really, really in line with. Duarte doesn't do much besides shoot the ball. He doesn't really get to the line. He's an okay defender, not a playmaker, not a rebounder. He's just a three-point specialist for the most part. Yes, he's playing a lot of minutes, and it feels weird because I was in my video series, the NBA 2K Rating Stockwatch, I was talking him up every single update, but he was a 73, one of the lowest rated guys in the game. You didn't need to push him all the way up to practically an 80. I just think that they overshot things just a little bit. And Nickeil Alexander-Walker, he hasn't really been able to put the ball in the basket. I do think that starters should be rated high based on their role. They are playing a lot of more minutes per game than the average. The larger sample means more. If you took these same stats for a player that was played 85 minutes versus 285, yes, this matters a lot more. The other guy is not playing much, probably because he's not very good. His playmaking's not there. His shooting's not there. Likewise, 77 would have been fair. He just shouldn't have been a 75. Jalen Greene, he has, like Cade Cunningham, has really struggled to put the ball in the hole. He's had 2 really good games, and then the rest have been absolutely heinous. And his rating did not drop. He does not deserve a 79 overall. Cunningham doesn't deserve this 80. Green doesn't deserve the 79. But they basically gave the rookies a free pass in the early going. Seth Curry, y'all are going to say this is crazy, but Seth Curry, if the All-Star game was tomorrow, he would probably make it. This production is nuts for a two-guard. 76 true shooting. He's shooting like 63% from the field. Or no, 60% from the field now. 50% from three. Just to give you an idea, Kyle Korver, the year that he made the All-Star game, 49% from the field, 49% from three. Curry is shooting 60% from the field right now, averaging 19 points per game. Korver averaged 12. Just this level of efficiency is nuts, and it's not like it's in like low volume or anything. Like he's a specialist for sure, but he just excels in his role to the point where when you look at the other shooting guards in the Eastern Conference, we've got Zach LaVine, we've got Jaylen Brown, and then who's the next best two guard in the East? Bradley. I'm taking Seth Curry over Bradley Beal. I'm sorry. I'm taking a guy with the 76 true shooting over the guy with 48 true shooting who's like not really doing much to win his team ball games. Curry's been the go-to guy down the stretch for the 76ers. And like shooting guard in general is just very thin in the Eastern Conference. Like so Beal's the fourth best shooting guard. Who is the fifth best shooting guard in the East? Like Evan Fournier? I'm not really seeing it. Normally it would be Terry Rozier, but he has not been good as of yet. I guess we're looking at like Fournier and Gary Trent. Gary Trent's a superior defensive player. So yeah, I would say Gary Trent's probably the top 5 shooting guard in the East right now. Colin Sexton's been struggling too. Bogdanovic, yeah. All the usual options not performing all that well. And obviously we're counting James Harden as a point guard, and Kyrie has yet to play this year. But, Seth Curry, awesome so far. And he's still continued to, even after this update, he's still continued to shoot the ball very well. So absolutely should have a higher rating than a 78. Him being rated lower than Chris Duarte is fucking insanity. That's how you know that they definitely overshot on Chris Duarte and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Oh my god, this is like abominable when you really look at it. Curry should be like an 80 or even 82 right now at the very least. 80 like bare minimum. Will Barton has been the second best player on the Nuggets this year. Likewise, it should just have a higher rating, like 80, 81. If Halliburton's an 81, I definitely think Barton should be like an 80. Have a higher rating than Tim Hardaway Jr. and Eric Gordon for sure. Eric Gordon's rating they raised, even though he's coming off the bench for the Rockets. Yeah, the fact that Eric Gordon both these guys went up, but Barton is having the vastly superior year. That's a dud. Kind of ditto Derek White. His rating didn't change, but he's likewise having a better year than some of the other guys on this list. Lou Dort, we could throw his shooting out the window. He's obviously known as a defensive player, and his shooting rating, if anything, is low because he's being asked to do way too much offensively. There's no way that he should have a 20 usage rate under any circumstances. When you look at the usage rates of other guys on this list, like Curry, for example. Then we got a bunch of guys who are hurt. DiVincenzo, Dylan Brooks, Kobe White, Kendrick Nunn, who will eventually... I think all these guys will be back next month. D'Anthony Melton has played really well as the starting two guard for the Grizzlies. Likewise, his rating went up, but they undershot. Again, they overshot super hard on Duarte and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and then they were very passive with some other guys. If those guys are 79s, Melton should be a 79, and those guys, I think, should just be the 77s. Grayson Allen has been solid. If anything, he's probably stolen DiVincenzo's starting role. I would expect them to probably swap in rating before the end of the year. And then we get to a bunch of guys who have struggled to put the ball in the basket. Although, not Jeremy Lamb. Why? Like, Jeremy Lamb dropping in rating, I knew that was baffling when I saw it. 61 true shooting, 15 PER. He's played well. Why did they drop his rating? Like, when you look at what he's done, basically on par with, like, Eric Gordon, I don't get it. They mainly just dropped his rating only so Chris Duarte would have a higher rating, but in limited minutes, or not limited minutes, but a smaller role, he's outperformed him for the most part. Like, he hasn't stopped being the player that he is. It's just, this is insanity. Duncan Robinson is another player that's really struggled, and it's been in a pretty big sample. He's only a three-point shooter, and the three-point shot has just not gone down for him at all. So his rating dropped as a result. But yeah, Jeremy, I just can't get over this Jeremy Lamb thing. Devin Vassell, Luke Kennard, those guys have been playing very well. The guys with the 60 true shooting. Jeremy Lamb doesn't look crazy being next to those guys, but I think it just exemplifies that all three of those guys should just be higher. Ditto for ditto for never mind. I think I said, yeah, ditto for Thibault. Jordan Poole, a lot of people I think were surprised that his rating didn't go up, but he had struggled with his shot. He had a great preseason, but he was only shooting 24% from three-point range at the time of this update. With that said, this is why I posted the stats from at the time of the roster update, because since then he's been phenomenal. Had a career high 31 points in his most recent game, or not in his most recent game, but immediately after the update. Oh, so worth noting that November 3rd, those games did not make it into the update. So that also, yeah, the Poole's career night, even though the update released on November 4th, they probably submitted the data at like 6 p.m. or something like that. So in order for it to go live the next morning, however that shit works with when they said they have to submit things to like Sony and Microsoft, etc. But 57 points in his last two games. So, and his shooting numbers have been great, 13 threes over the last two. So yeah, his rating will go up in the next update. He just missed the cut based on timing for this one. Joe Harris, Huerter, Quickly, Suggs, all these guys have struggled to put the ball in the basket, so it makes sense for their ratings to drop. Damien Lee, he has played really well for the Warriors. He was a 73. Been the best backup on the Warriors for the most part. Shooting the ball great, 65 true shooting. But again, like, you just look at the other guys, guys like Vassell, Thibault, Kennard, Grayson Allen, Jeremy Lamb. I think all these guys should just gone up, higher than what they're at. Josh Richardson has really fallen off the last couple of years. Bryn Forbes doesn't do anything besides shoot, and he has not been doing that, so his rating dropped. Caleb Martin's been playing well on a two-way contract for the Heat. Landry Shamet has been one of the more underrated two guards in the NBA over the last couple years. 73 is way too low for him. We see the 61 true shooting. Again, like, they're dropping players. Like Ty Jerome wishes that he was Landry Shamet, but he was higher rated than him to start the season, which is asinine. And the rest of these guys are struggling to crack the rotations of their teams. Frank Jackson, likewise, has been terrible, but had a higher rating than Shamet. Bones Highland, his rating went up a tick. He clearly is playing very well. He took Austin Rivers' rotation spot. When you look at the numbers, it's pretty easy to see why. Only played 5 games so far, so not a ton of data to work off of, but I would expect him to take a large leap in the next update. Garrett Temple, I have no idea. Similar to Landry Shamet, why the fuck is Garrett Temple rated lower than half of these bums. Like, this is not a new development. Garrett Temple's been in the NBA for well over a decade. He's been doing this for a number of years. He's been playing 24 to 27, 28 minutes per game over the last 6 years. He was the sixth man in Chicago. Has been the sixth man for the Brooklyn. Started a couple of years before that. How is he a 72? I don't get it. I just don't get it. Avery Bradley is Avery Bradley. There's a reason that, it's funny when you compare his production versus Gary Payton II. Warriors fans have got to be ecstatic that they made the right decision on that roster move. The rest of these guys have all barely played. DeSinmo, Austin Reeves, they've been in their team's rotations, so they went up in rating. Reeves is basically the next Alex Caruso. Not a point guard, though, so not going to put... he really needs to boost this number, I think, in order to really boost his value. As a low-usage player, but... the Lakers need a lot of help right now. But certainly he's playing a lot for them. He's their seventh man. Should have a higher rating than a 70 just based on the merit of that. There is a lot of bums who are not playing who have higher ratings than him. So that was the two guards. Let's break down small forwards. Jimmy Butler has been the best small forward in the NBA. Paul George, likewise. DeMar DeRozan, all three of these guys, the best small forwards in the NBA, and they all went up in rating. Jason Tatum went down in rating. He was higher rated than all these guys, I believe. He was a 91. I can't remember what Butler's rating was. I think it's either coming from a 9. I think he also was a 91, and this is just a +1. So those two combined were essentially the highest rated threes, the healthy threes. Again, Kawhi I have on the two-guard list rather than small forward because of Paul George. But, Jason Tatum, they only dropped him 2 points, and it's asinine. He's played awful. He's played like a player in the 79-80 range. He's been so bad that he makes Andrew Wiggins look good. 32 usage, 47 true shooting, just can't put the ball in the basket. His assist rate is down. And his inefficiency is a big reason why the Celtics have struggled out of the gate. And DeMar DeRozan has been the best player on the Bulls so far in the early going. And to be honest, he was already doing this. He did this with the Spurs, and he was kind of neglected because nobody cares about the Spurs. But just looking at his production, right now he's averaging 27% points per game. His usage rate, I think, is a little higher, but 50% from the field, 53% the year before, 7 assists per game, 6 assists per game, 6 assists per game. He's been playing at a very high level for the last 3 years with the Spurs. And again, when you look at, you see this 22 PER, 59 true shooting, 32 usage, or 32 assist rate. Compare that against all the other players on this list. He already should have been an 88. They had him at an 85 next to guys like Brandon Ingram and fucking RJ Barrett. So they boosted his rating. Great. It should go even higher. He should be a 90 along with Paul George and Jimmy Butler. And also, both of these guys should be higher than the 90 and 92 that they've got. Jimmy Butler was phenomenal last season as well, and absolutely was neglected. We see career year, 26.5 PER, 61 true shooting, 35 assist rate. He was better than than Jason Tatum, I thought. Fantastic defensive player as well. Better than Tatum, certainly. And, this is like a course correction. This is how I would have started the year, period, with Butler at a 92 and Tatum at an 89, and then boosted Butler even further based on his production this year, and then reduced Tatum even further based on what the hellacious season he's had so far. And Paul George, he's been filling the void for Kawhi Leonard. His usage rate is back to at the level it was with the OKC Thunder in 2019, I believe. He was the third in MVP that season, and All NBA first team. So certainly his production right now matches that. So he should have a rating much higher than a 90. Kawhi Leonard has a 95, and that's basically the level that George played at with the Thunder that year. So I'm positive that his rating is going to continue to climb. At a 90, it's underrated, especially relative to, for him to be 90 and Jason Tatum 89. It's insane. Chris Middleton, he struggled a little bit with his shot, so his rating drops. We see Brandon Ingram, he's likewise struggled, but like the fact that Ingram down here, he's likewise underrated just based on what he did like the last couple years. We can see he was much better last season. He should have. I think Ingram probably should have been like an 86, 87 if Middleton was going to be like a 87, 88, 89. I can't remember what his rating originally was, but he's been carrying things for the Pelicans with Zion out of the lineup. RJ Barrett's been much improved offensively. His shot is finally dropping. That's been the major knock on him. And he's been a solid defensive player, so his rating goes up. OG Anunoby, one of the best 3-and-D players in the NBA, but except he hasn't been able to be a 3-and-D player. He's actually carrying a little bit of the offensive load for the team in the absence of Pascal Siakam, so absolutely makes sense for him to have a 4-point boost to his overall rating. Caris LeVert has played really well since returning from injury. A 35 assist rate is noteworthy. That's higher than Malcolm Brogdon, who's the starting point guard on the team, so it's worth keeping an eye on. They might be using LeVert as the primary playmaker rather than Brogdon. So that would, especially with a 35 usage rate, that's what that tells me, is that he's been super ball dominant in these 3 games. Has not shot the ball terribly well, but if he's going to be setting guys up, it is certainly this would go down as LeVert's best season of his career by far. So hopefully he keeps it up. Gordon Hayward, 2K dropped his rating, but I'm not really sure why. He's still shooting the ball reasonably well. Solid playmaker as well. And again, when we look at Terry Rozier's rating with a 7 PER and an 81 overall rating, I think they really just wanted to drop him to make sure that Miles Bridges didn't have a lower rating, is what I think that comes down to. His brother Michael Bridges, we see he's an 82 also, but I just think both of these guys are underrated. 2K does a very bad job of like filling out its mid-tier. There typically aren't, like, there's usually a huge gap between like the players. There's a whole bunch of players rated in like the 80, 82 range, and then you'll have a whole bunch rated in like the 88 plus range, but then very few players rated in the 83 to 87 range. I think that's pretty much true of all the positions. We see 81 to 83. There's nothing. I mean, for shooting guards, there's like only four players between 80 and 86. And the point guards, there's a lot more talent in the NBA, so it's a little more balanced. But and we'll get to the other possessions in a second. But Michael Porter Jr., he's been awful for the Nuggets. They were relying on him to be the second best player, but he's just been a guy. His usage rate's only 20, and he's not putting the ball in the basket. I don't know if something's up with him mentally or physically, but it has not been good for him. His rating dropped 3 points and clearly should drop even further. He's forgotten how to play basketball. A rating as we go down the list, you got to go down to like 76 to find another player, and like aside from Deandre Hunter, who's a much better defensive player, to find a player in the single digits of player efficiency rating, which I think just exemplifies how much Porter has really struggled to contribute in the early going. Norman Powell is playing fantastic for the Blazers. Missed a couple games to injury, but 65 true shooting, 20 PER. I think he grades as a top 3 small forward in the West. Let's break things down by conference. East, Top 3 is Jimmy Butler, DeMar DeRozan, and then number 3 is Chris Middleton. Oh, I technically Levert in his small sample. Well, actually, let's go OG Anunoby. Yeah, Butler, DeRozan, and OG. And then in the Western Conference, it would be Paul George, Paul George, Norm Powell all the way down here. And then I guess Brandon Ingram. Yep. So he's been the second best small forward in the Western Conference right now, which is crazy. But 2K hasn't recognized that. They still think that Michael Porter Jr. is a better player. Clearly should have, I think, a higher rating than Gordon Hayward. They just completely neglected him. They did not touch his rating at all. Andrew Wiggins has been solid so far. I would boost him to like an 81, 82. Should be in the same tier as Hayward and Bridges, although I think they are probably a point or two underrated. So yeah, fuck it. Throw Wiggins up to an 82, 83 as well. Boyan Bogdanovic, he's been much better. He struggled a lot in the early going of last year, which kind of dragged down his rating. But he's putting the ball in the basket, averaging like 20 points for the Jazz. So his rating went up. He was only a 77 before, which is asinine when, again, you compare some of the ratings that we've been going through. But he goes up. Saddiq Bey, he went up, although it was like kind of a little like too late. He played very well in the first 4 games of the season. Oops. Date. First 4 games, shot 48% from the field, was averaging 18 points, 10 rebounds, but then it completely fell apart after that. In the 3 games after, shot only 26% from the field, so that kind of tanked him. But I think he was great. He was rated more off of these games, and then they dropped. Once we get to the power forwards, they dropped Jeremy Grant's rating, but he had the opposite problem in that he struggled in the early going, but he's gotten going since. So I think Saddiq Bey, the rating boost made sense in the first 5 games. Since then, I think he'll probably drop back down to like a 78, 77, unless he can turn around his shooting. He is a solid rebounder and playmaker. He's doing that. He's been asked to do a lot more shot creation in the absence of Cade Cunningham. Now that Cunningham is back, maybe he can go back to his usual role, and that'll help his efficiency. Buddy Hield, he's been a sleeper 6-man this year. Tyler Hero's been getting all of the publicity, but their numbers aren't too far apart. He's been shooting it very well, solid rebounding, and he's not complained about his role. Last year he kind of bristled at the idea of coming off the bench, but this year he has embraced it. So he goes, he didn't go up in rating at all, and I likewise think that is a mistake. Cam Reddish, he's been playing very well off the bench for the Hawks. He's been their 6th man and outplaying some of the other options like Kevin Huerter and Danilo Gallinari, so I thought this rating boost was effective. Joe Ingles, he dropped, like some of the drops, and it's just no sense at all. He dropped in rating, but he's been good. A 76 true shooting, and they found a reason to drop him. When you look at like some of the other players that they either left alone or like barely dropped, like that's just asinine. 2K just doing whatever they want. They clearly are like very selective and not actually crunching the numbers for everybody. I think that's one thing that comes clear once you really crunch the numbers like this. Josh Giddey's been playing well. He was 75 prior to this, so got a +4. He's now rated on par with Jalen Greene, a point behind Cade Cunningham. Clearly, he's playing much better than both of those guys, so his rating should continue to climb. Wouldn't shock me if he was an 81, 82 even by the next update. Struggles to score the ball efficiently, but does everything else very well. Leads the team in assist rate, great rebounder. puts defensive stats on the board. He's basically a 6'8" point guard. Deandre Hunter, he struggled a little bit with Cam Reddish, blowing up a little bit offensively. It made sense to drop his rating. Lauri Markkanen has struggled offensively in the as a starting small forward for the Cavaliers, but certainly it makes sense to drop his rating. He's not nearly as effective as at small forward as he is at the 4, but he is a better option than Isaac Okoro was last year. I'll give him that. Desmond Bain, he has been playing really well for the Grizzlies. Big part of why they have been looking like they're going to make a playoff push. 60 true shooting, 17 PER. His rating went up. Realistically, he should be on par with Bogdanovic, who I also believe is underrated too. Like, have both of those guys at an 80, I think. Alec Burks went down, even though he's having a better year than last season, so go figure. Josh Hart, likewise playing really well in his 6-man role. Terrence Ross has struggled. He's been very erratic offensively, so it makes sense to drop his rating. Frickin' Korkmaz, Franz Wagner. Franz Wagner's been outplaying Terrence Ross, and he's the starter on the Magic, so that makes very clear that Franz, even though they boosted his rating, still underrated. He's basically a young version of Bogdanovic. And Frickin' Korkmaz has made a pretty good leap with the Sixers. His playmaking numbers are up. He's creating a lot more off the dribble now, so he's definitely improved. He's not just a 3-point shooter anymore, so his rating definitely needs to climb. Nasir Little, likewise, his rating went up. Has finally been putting the ball in the basket, something he struggled to do the first couple of years of his career. Terence Mann, his rating absolutely should not have dropped. This was another case of like they just look at the shooting ratings too much. Off of 6 games, it's way too small of a sample for them to be dropping guys. Again, like they because of how selective they are, we've seen them ignore the shooting samples of players like Luka Doncic, etc. But then you're going to penalize the guys who are taking far fewer shots. I just don't get it. Don't get it at all. Tate, same deal. Danny Green. I don't know what Danny Green did wrong to lose his rating, because he's got a 68 true shooting. He's playing better than he did last year. His defensive stats are great, so I don't know. I think they're just dropping him because of anecdotally they felt like they needed to drop him. Like, oh, Korkmaz is playing better. Well, leave Green at the 77 that he was and just boost Korkmaz even more. You don't need to reduce Green's rating to make Korkmaz look good. Jaden McDaniels, for example, went up in rating, even though he has been shooting awful. So they're extremely selective in how they apply themselves. Svi Mykhailiuk, his rating went up. He's likewise been great off the bench for the Raptors. Great find in the offseason, 73 true shooting. Cody Martin, likewise playing well, was an awful shooter prior to the season, was like a 50 true shooting for his career, 20-something% from 3. He's improved from 3-point range and the free throw line, so just improved overall as a shooter, and means his rating should go up even further. His performance is going to be pretty consistent, I feel. Cedi Osman has been a lot better than last year. Last year really struggled with his shot. 70 true shooting the early going. His rating went up, but should go higher. Pat Connaughton's been the 6th man for the Bucks. Playing like 30 minutes a game. Shooting's great. He only went up 1 point. Like, they're so fucking selective. These guys down here are like very clearly outplaying some of the guys up here, and they just don't get any love. There's no KCP starting for. He's been a starter for a number of years. He shouldn't be down here at a 74 to begin with. Rated next to his backup Corey Kispert, who was just drafted. Andre Iguodala, we've only had 15 years or so to get him correct. There's no way he should be a 73 rated as low as he is. He's like one of the lowest rated. He's the seventh. He's the second best backup on the Warriors, and is like the 10th rated player on the team or something. Kent Bazemore starting, and they decided to drop his rating. Like Kendrick Williams, also like these guys play prominent roles for their teams. Kendrick Williams is the sixth man on the OKC Thunder. You can't just look at the shooting numbers. These guys play defense. They don't look at defensive ratings at all. And especially with the twos and the two guards and the small forwards, a lot of these guys are 3-and-D players. So if you're not going to reevaluate their defensive ratings anytime that they do struggle to score offensively, like it just tanks their rating way too much. Like these guys should be rated higher. Because their teams value them that much, because they are quality defensive players. Justin Holiday also falls into the same bracket. So yeah, very, very disappointed in how 2K, like a lot of these guys in the lower 70s should be much, much higher rated. Let's go to the power forwards. So power forwards were led by Giannis and Durant. I've got LeBron at the 4 rather than the small forward, as it looks like the Lakers are going to go with AD at the 5 and LeBron at the 4. They've been starting Avery Bradley at the 2 and Ken Bazemore at the 3 since they picked up Avery Bradley. Avery Bradley wasn't with the team in the preseason, but has since been able to incorporate himself. And they just need the floor spacing next to Russell Westbrook. I think we saw pretty early on that Westbrook and having Westbrook, DeAndre Hunter, DeAndre Jordan, it's the spacing just isn't going to be there. Anthony Davis isn't really a 3-point shooter either. So I've got LeBron at the 4, and you can see his production is way down. Not getting to the line at all. He's been a little banged up to start the year. His rebounding has fallen off a cliff, and his assist rate, he's been deferring to Westbrook. So his rating absolutely should have dropped. He's not one of the best 5 players in the league anymore. That's a problem for the Lakers. But LeBron, you can also say oh well, look at his samples. It's only 6 games. Blah 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 blah. He's never had a 6-game stretch in his career where in the last 15 years where he played this poorly. Never. So that is notable in year 19, whatever he's in, age 37. Absolutely needs to drop from a 96. Drop him to a 94. Start trickling him down, because he's not. He's very clearly not on the level of guys like Giannis and Durant right now, who are carrying their respective teams. Tobias Harris and Sabonis, they've been more or less carrying their respective teams, but to the best of their ability. Harris in the middle of a career year. Domantas Sabonis kind of doing more or less the same thing he did last year, but he was a little underrated. Prior to that, we look at John Collins. Super underrated by 2K. 63 true shooting, solid rebounder, good assist numbers. Didn't have his rating touched at all. We see he's a much better shot blocker than Sabonis. So I don't know what they're doing there. And it's not like John Collins had a run to the conference finals for us to get a very good look at the player that he is or anything. Julius Randle slipping a little bit. He's been pressing a little bit out of the gate. I do think that his numbers will get a little bit better. 53 true shooting is a little bit low, but everything else is right there with where he was last year. Worth noting, this is the highest block rating he's ever put up in his career, so we'll see if he's able to maintain that. If he is able to, that means he's a much better defensive player, so that's something to consider. But yeah, this Collins rating is terrible. But Miles Bridges, Harrison Barnes, they were the big movers at the power forward spot. They were both +5s, I believe, both 78 overall coming into this update. and they've been both playing like most improved player candidates. Uh, Bridges in particular, I think, has been considered the favorite based on the Hornets start, but like Harrison Barnes, quietly, I think is gonna have a stronger case by the end of the year. He's probably gonna be the more consistent shooter, and the fact that he gets to the line, I think, is gonna make his production stickier. Whereas Bridges, if he has an off night with his jumper, might be, he'll struggle a little bit on those days. Um, Though he is, it does appear that he is a better defensive player than Barnes as well. Neither one of these teams really plays much defense, though. Since this update, these teams did match up, and the Kings beat the Hornets by 30, 140 to 110. So that should exemplify just how little defense both of these teams play. Christian Wood, he's been solid. But nothing crazy to write home about either. 55 true shooting. I think he's the best defensive rebounder among all the power forwards. Better than worth noting that Giannis has also spent most of his time at center, actually, rather than power forward. So yeah, I think Wood is the best four. Wood technically also might be a five. We'll take a look at Daniel Tice once we get to him on the centers page. But yeah, Siakam hasn't come back yet, so Scottie Barnes has been playing extremely well in his absence. Right now, Barnes projects to be the rookie of the year. 50. He's got the best production of any rookie that we've seen so far. 59 true shooting, solid rebounder, pretty good defender. The Raptors have been very good defensively. And let's compare him against fellow rookie Evan Mobley. Mobley's been a solid double-double threat, but we see even Barnes has been out-rebounding him, and he's been even more efficient with his shooting and playing a larger offensive role. So right now, I think I'd give the nod to Barnes for Rookie of the Year. We'll see if Kade Cunningham will have something to say about that, but it's been Barnes 1, Mobley 2 as far as the rookies go. Kristaps Porzingis, I mentioned before the decreasing players off of very small sample sizes. He's only played 3 games, and clearly, he's somebody that I think people wanted to drop popularity-wise. I think in terms of like discourse with the media, he was an 85 overall prior to this, and I think it would make sense to drop his rating. But again, when you look at the favoritism they've shown to various players that we've covered through this update, like Luka Doncic, LeBron James, etc., I'm all for dropping players on small samples. You just got to be fair, So that's how I feel about that. Jaron Jackson Jr., he's likewise struggled, so he dropped a little bit in rating. Basically, he's the Luka Doncic of his team. The Grizzlies are hoping that he can fill a unicorn-type role with his shooting and defense. Has yet to really deliver on that front. Was hurt most of last season, kind of struggled, and has struggled in the early going of this year. Al Horford, he has been great for the Celtics by comparison, so absolutely he should have a higher rating than Jackson and Porzingis. And even guys like, I guess I skipped over Wendell Carter Jr., but he's been really good for the Magic, their best player. But Horford has outplayed all these guys. He should be right here with Bridges and Barnes at an 83. The best rebounding rate of his career, and he's like tripled his shot block rate as well. So absolutely should have gone up. Carmelo Anthony is putting together like a 6-man caliber season right now. 66 true shooting, awful defensive player, and that's been a part of the Lakers' struggles in the early going. But certainly offensively, no complaints here. Realistically, should not be too far off from Bridges and Barnes, I think. But he was a 78 before, so moving into an 80 is taking things in the right direction. Draymond Green, his demise was greatly exaggerated. 30 best passing power forward in the NBA, solid rebounder. His shooting efficiency has been better than usual. and obviously he's a great defensive player. So I would rate him higher than Jeremy Grant. Jeremy Grant did drop in rating, but as we can see from his numbers versus Sadiq Bey's, his numbers started to come around and are definitely better than Sadiq Bey's. So if anything, I would have been fine with Grant being left at an 82 and Bey being left at like a 78. Kuzma, he these numbers kind of don't reflect. He was 1 for 10 right before the update, or right after the update. So that's included in this stats, but was not included in 2K's evaluation of him. So his numbers look a little worse. Other than that, like, I guess let's actually jump in and break him down. Prior to the update, he was shooting 43%, 35% from three, 16 points, 11 rebounds per game, which were career highs. Well, career high in rebounding, like doubled his rebound rate, and his percentages were identical to what he did the previous year. But then this 1 for 10 on the 0 for 5 on threes, we're still so early in the year that has a significant impact on his shooting percentage. So that's why where is he? There, I can't read. There we go. That's why he's a little lower than you would think. I think his rating's fine. It's just typically compared to the other guys, he would appear overrated based on this. Kyle Anderson dropped. He's been struggling with his shot, but has been coming around, and he's a great rebounder, great defender, pretty good playmaker. I wouldn't have dropped him. I would have just left him at an 80. Aaron Gordon went up. He's kind of the same mold as Kyle Anderson, but he's been much more effective finishing at the basket, which would make sense given that Kyle Anderson has very little athleticism and Eric Gordon is a former slam dunk champion, or I think he's a 2-time runner-up slam dunk champion. Needless to say, I'd have both of these guys at 80. Obi Toppin's much improved off the Knicks bench, looking like a mini Amari Stoudemire, 62 true shooting, getting to the free throw line quite a bit, so it made sense to boost his rating. Paul Millsap did not get his rating changed, but he's been probably his worst year in like the last decade. He's exclusively backing up Kevin Durant right now, so I would drop his rating comparable to like what we've seen with other guys like Goran Dragic and Thaddeus Young, who should be highlighted in blue because his rating dropped 2 points. You know who they didn't drop in rating? Marvin Bagley III. He's been completely out of the rotation, and they did not touch him, but they saw fit to drop Thaddeus Young. Go figure. I'm not going to call into question their work ethic over at 2K or anything, but geez, that's looks a little silly. Torrey Craig's been having a great year off the Pacers bench, more or less been their 6th or 7th man. Otto Porter is having a resurgence for the Warriors, but his rating did not change at all. Kenyon Martin Jr., so far so good in his limited minutes. Him and Maxi Kleber, 70-plus true shooting, but their ratings do not change. And again, we've seen plenty of examples where players with half the sample, they dropped in rating. We see Jay Crowder and Cam Johnson, they drop in rating with comparable samples. George Niang goes up, Nick Batum goes down, and this one was just fucking another baffling one to me. As again, it's too early in the year to be basing things off a shooting percentage. So again, these stats are based on November 4th, but the November 3rd games did not make it into the update. There we go. So if we highlight Batum, the games that made it in, the 5 games that he played, 40% from the field, 30% from 3. Yeah, sure. If you're looking at that, then it makes sense to drop his rating off his 5 games and what is this, like 140 minutes or whatever. But then he went 6 of 8 from 3 in his very next game, which maybe you could have seen coming after he went 4 of 8 in the previous game. But immediately after that, like at press time, he was shooting 40% from 3, which is what he shot last year. And they decreased his 3-point rating by a considerable amount. You're doing that off of 5 games. Like, I don't understand, like, the thinking for these guys that work on the roster team. You know, shooting percentage, if anything, is like the most volatile of all basketball stats. You know, rebounds, assists, etc. Those are all very consistent. Why aren't you focusing on those and like giving these guys, you know, a little time to breathe with their shooting? Because like you just look silly like really early on, like dropping Batum by 2 points, because very like he's been great for the Clippers for the most part. And when you compare him to some of the other guys who've had like 75 overall ratings that we've gone through, like it's mind-boggling. He's got the same rating as Juan Hernangomez, who has like been awful the last few years and not playing at all for the Boston Celtics. And Darius Bazley, who's like only starting for the OKC Thunder because they just don't care. Like very clearly, I don't think there's a GM in the league aside from Sam Presti who would take Bazley over Nick Batum. Javonte Green, he's been really great so far. Playing power forward for the first time in his career, and he's a pretty good finisher, great dunker. 69 true shooting, very good rebounder for his size as well. So it was good to see his rating go up from a 72. Obviously, he's starting right now rather than Patrick Williams, who is out for the regular season. Patrick Williams all the way down here. I'm not really sure why he dropped in rating. His rebounding dropped off a little. This is not great for power forward, but again, it's only 5 games. I don't know why we're losing our minds over some of this stuff. For him to drop in rating, again, when you've got Juan Hernangomez and Darius Bazley, but especially Juan Hernangomez, like, that, it's just fucking stupid. It's just fucking stupid. Ditto for Robert Covington. This is the worst. This one makes me want to throw my computer. Because he's playing very, like, I guess it's not really reflected here. 7.5 PER, but 54 true shooting is not terrible. He's a very solid rebounder, and he's a great defensive player. He's rated lower than all the other, like, a whole bunch of players on the Portland Trail Blazers. Like, when you looked at his team numbers, it just made no sense. But once we look at like how he's doing for the rest of the year, like he's shooting 43% from 3. He's just generally having a better year than he did last year, and he dropped 2 or 3 points in rating. Like, what are we doing here? He's a starter, and you got him rated on par with fucking Jonathan Kuminga. I don't get it. Grant Williams, he's having a career year, so he went up 4 points in rating. Trey Lyles, he's bouncing back from a subpar year last season, so he went up. PJ Tucker, I don't know why he's down here at a 74 when he's a big part of Miami's defense and obviously was a big part of the Bucks championship. For him to be rated just a 1 point higher than the number 20-something first-round pick, a guy who was taken in the second round, a guy who's a third string, a guy who's a third string, a guy who hasn't played in like the last 2 years, a guy who's a third string. Like, it's batshit crazy, like how bad they are at some of these ratings. Herb Jones, basically the next PJ Tucker. He's been starting for the Pelicans in the absence of Zion. Ditto for Thanasis Antetokounmpo, starting in the absence of Brook Lopez. So these guys go up in rating, but when you look at their performance relative to like some of the other guys, again, you could just go higher than a 72. They don't need to be among the worst players at their position. And we see Semi Ojeleye drop 3 points in rating, but again, has only played 45 minutes. So you're gonna rate this guy off of 3 games, and like, what is this, like 10 shots that we're re-rating him on? Like, for him to drop that substantially off of 45 minutes. Again, Cade Cunningham, his shooting wasn't much better. He played 80 minutes. He wasn't touched. So What are we doing here? Lamar Stevens drops in rating again because his shooting numbers are not great, but he's likewise played 51 minutes. What are we doing here? Like, 2K, you guys are embarrassing yourselves. If you're gonna have a system, you need to hold everybody to the same standard, or you just look foolish. Okay, going over to the centers. Nikola Jokic has continued to play at an MVP level, and we see, as I covered before, Embiid has fallen off a little bit this year. Might be dealing with the knee injury. His efficiency has not been there, so it would have made sense to drop him. Clearly, one of these players is better than the other right now. Anthony Davis bouncing back from he was injured all of last year, so his rating dropped as a result of that. I think now that his production's going up, even though the Lakers are struggling, it makes sense to bump. He could have gone up a point or two. I think I would be more down with him being a 95 and Embiid being a 93 right now, because at least we know that Davis is a great defensive player. Unlike Jokic, like I can buy them being equal, in terms of that. Davis is going to be the best player on the Lakers by far this season, as it looks like LeBron is going to fall off this year, and obviously Westbrook has been atrocious. So Rudy Gobert, he's having a career season, and it's like not even like super obvious, but 42 defensive rebound percentage, it would be the best mark in NBA history. So clearly he's been great on that end. 75 true shooting. He's very efficient. His foul draw rate is insane. This is like above Shaq tier. That's how much he's been getting to the line. So like the Jazz offense, obviously like Rudy Gobert is not like Shaq or anything, but it just means the Jazz offense has really been clicking. And previously Donovan Mitchell has like the two-man game between them has been not lacking at times, but with this kind of foul draw rating, it seems very clear that they're clicking on all cylinders right now. His career high 74% from the field. He was already the league leader at 68% prior to that. He's shooting better from the free throw line. He's averaging a career high 16 rebounds, leading the league in that. And the foul draw rate is basically double what he did the previous season. And as we mentioned before, this defensive rebound rate is by far the best of his career. So he's having an historic season right now. He did go up a point in rating. I think he absolutely should be in the 90s. That's his, the Jazz were the number one seed, the number one team in the Western Conference last season. It looks like they're going to give that a run for their money again. Also, I think they're like 7-1 or 7-2 or something like that. And he's the engine that makes them work. Defensively, the team is built around him, and if he's going to be producing like this offensively, then absolutely he's in the 90s, because his offense was the one thing that was holding him back, if anything. Karl Towns, he will probably return to the All-Star game. Has had a really down year last year. Only 49% from the field. He's backed up to 51. 49 from three right now from 39 last year. He was at 41 and 51 in the season prior. And obviously in that tier in the years that he did make the All-Star game. So Wolves have been a lot better than they have been the last few. He'll probably make a return. All that depends on the... it's a tight race for those front court spots in the West. With Joker is a given, Anthony Davis is a given, Rudy Gobert is a given. So if Towns makes it, it's gonna have to be as like the fourth center in the West. I guess I didn't check what the ranking is for the power forwards. LeBron, is he the top power forward in the Western Conference? Zion has not played. These guys, like LeBron's, I'm sure, going to get voted onto the All-Star team, whether or not he deserves it. It looks like the Eastern Conference, though, is very power forward dominant. Giannis, Durant, Harris, Sabonis, Randle, Collins, Miles Bridges. Jesus Christ. Harrison Barnes is the top power forward in the Western Conference, so that might bode very well for him making the All-Star team. But it also might mean that that a player like Towns is able to slip in as a fourth big man on the team, as really the only competition Barnes is going to have is I guess Barnes, LeBron, Zion if he comes back. After that, you're looking at Christian Wood as like a top 5 power forward in the Western Conference, and in the East, Giannis, Durant. And it looks like between Harris and Collins, I'd probably give the nod to Harris based on team record. Harris was like the 4th best power forward in the East after Randle and Sabonis last year, and it looks like that ranking might be inverted this year. But heading back to the centers, so yeah, it seems like Towns is probably going to make the All-Star team this year. And then in the East, you've got Embiid. Bam is playing very well. He went up in rating, but he's having a career year so far. Has really vibed with Kyle Lowry. His assist rate is down, but his usage rate is up. He's being featured in the pick and roll and in the post more, and his rebound rate has also gone up like 10%. And he's been a big part of the Heat's top-ranked defense. So he's probably an easy second All-Star in the Eastern Conference. And yeah, it looks like the West is center-dominated. You got Valanciunas, DeAndre Ayton after that as like the 4th and 5th best centers. Clint Capella and Jarrett Allen. Jarrett Allen's been outplaying Clint Capella, and he's a big reason why the Cavs have been winning games. They're like 5-4, I think, or 6-4. And the Hawks, I believe, dropped to like 4-6 at the time of this video recording. So they dropped Capella's rating. He has not. His rebound ratings are a little lower than last year. His efficiency slightly worse, so it makes sense to drop him a point. Jarrett Allen has been playing phenomenally. 70 true shooting, pretty solid rebounding numbers as well. Gets to the line a lot. I would definitely boost him up. I think if Bam's going to be an 87, Bam should really be like an 88, 89, I think. But I think it stands to reason that Jarrett Allen should probably be in the same tier as like Capella, Ayton, and Valanciunas, especially given that he's the best player on the Cavs, who are winning games this year. Nikola Vuchevich, he's really struggled to score the ball, 45 true shooting, but he's a team first player. Still has a great assist rate. He's been better than expected defensively, but you got to think that eventually his offense will come around. Worth noting, they did drop him, and plenty of other players had a similar decline. Bradley Beal, etc. They didn't get touched though. Joseph Nurkic, he's finally healthy, so he's producing comparable to what he did like 3 years ago. His rating probably should have gone up. I say probably, definitely. He should probably be like an 83. He's been like the second best player on the Blazers after CJ McCollum, which goes to show how much Dame Lillard has struggled this year. Montrezl Harrell and Richaun Holmes, super underrated. Montrezl Harrell, for all the talk that Tyler Hero's gotten, this is Montrezl Harrell's award to lose. He's been awesome. He's been better than he was with the Clippers when he won Sixth Man of the Year. 69 true shooting. His rebounding is great. Block numbers are better than usual as well. And Richaun Holmes has quietly been like the second best player on the Sacramento Kings, if not the best, depending on your opinion of Harrison Barnes. Remember, De'Aaron Fox has really shit the bed offensively, and he's the one who's kind of like holding the team back, I think. Once he gets going, the Kings might be able to make some headway, but 73 true shooting, pretty good rebounder. He's the best defensive player on the team by a wide margin. Absolutely should be higher rated than an 80, I think. Miles Turner, really the same conversation. He's having his best season of his career, and he was a 79, only gets a 1 point boost. When you look at some of the other boosts that like players have gotten, absolutely should have gone up more than a point. Rob Williams, he went up a point, I think a point or two, but he's been solid as a starter for the Celtics this year. Mitchell Robinson, he's extremely low usage at only 8%. He's like the Knicks version of Rudy Gobert. Great finisher at the rim, very good at getting to the free throw line in the touches that he gets, but he's not getting many touches when you compare his usage rate to pretty much everybody else on this list. You got to go down to Dwight Howard and the Knicks' Nerlens Noel to find somebody who is that low. Lamarcus Aldridge, his usage rate is not low. He's been fantastic for the Brooklyn Nets, but his rating did not change at all. Absolutely should go up. I think like he should be at least an 80, in the 80-82 range, and Harrell should be like probably 83 to 85-ish, I want to say. That's usually what a sixth man would come in around, a sixth man of the year caliber guy. Andre Drummond, he's been great in his limited minutes. Rebound rate comparable to Rudy Gay. This would likewise be historic. And his steal rate, this would be the best steal rate by a center in NBA history. Obviously, it is still early, but it looks like he's going to post probably the best steal rate of his career and continue to rebound at. He's like the top three. He's a top three rebounder in NBA history, I believe. At least by rate, and he's a great passer as well. So I'd be okay with his rating going up. He would be starting under most circumstances, and he's extremely great insurance for the 76ers. Obviously, Joel Embiid is not like a mark of health or anything. Steven Adams, he's been great so far, but that did not get noticed by 2K. He's been rebounding better this year. Has been scoring the ball efficiently. Assist rate is up. Really good fit next to Ja Morant. But 2K did not notice. They think he's on par with Kelly Olynyk and Mason Plumlee. Mason Plumlee has had the opposite. Like, he's really struggled with the Hornets, not putting the ball in the basket at all. His assist rate is down as well. It does not make sense for Adams and Plumlee to have the same rating, I think. Mo Bamba, he's been good in the starting lineup for the Magic. A bit of a surprise. 61 true shooting. He is a good three-point shooter, good shot blocker, and a solid rebounder. Lopez and Portis have barely played for the Bucks. I'm surprised again. Semi Ojeleye and other players had their rating dropped for 45 minutes of play. Portis played 57, and his rating did not move at all. So I don't understand what the point of. I would be just fine with just leave the players, leave Ojeleye alone, leave all the role players alone. Why are we penalizing role players and like giving special treatment to the stars? Jakob Poeltl went up in rating, but he's basically on par with Steven Adams, I think. Fantastic rim protector, better shot blocker than this currently shows. Great offensive rebounder, great finisher at the rim. Arguably the second best player on the Spurs behind DeJounte Murray, but is rated nowhere close to it as a result. Dan Gafford has been starting for the Wizards and really effective. His rating did not move. Fantastic shot blocker. You can see he's not dissimilar from like Hassan Whiteside, who they've had rated at 78 for a number of years. I'm okay with his rating being high with the Utah Jazz because he's at least playing for the team. His issue last year was he wasn't playing at all for the Sacramento Kings. He was the third string center, so I wanted his rating to drop then. But as a backup, he's probably the one of the better backup centers in the NBA. I'd take him over Bobby Portis for sure. He's right there with Andre Drummond. Kevin Love has been solid. Dwight Howard did not drop in rating, and this is very problematic because even though you look at his production and it's like, well, how can you really drop him? He's still scoring efficiently. I guess his offensive rebound rating is not. That's a pretty big cause for concern because that's again a big part of Howard's value. But his rating did not go down. But if we go further down, Where is... Oh, never mind. Didn't have to go that far down. 76, Deandre Jordan is playing better than Dwight Howard. Pretty much across the board. And is starting over Dwight Howard, but has a lower rating than Dwight Howard. Why is this the case, 2K? I can tell you why. Because Dwight Howard, athletically, is still rated like he's 28 years old. They haven't touched most of his athleticism ratings in the last 5 or 6 years. He still has like a 70 speed rating or something ridiculous. He still has a very high vertical rating. Just because he's a great finisher doesn't mean that he's, a prime athlete anymore, and that's something that drives up his rating. So it would help if they looked at other things besides shooting percentage and shot ratings when they did the re-rated players. You need to re-rate some of the stuff that God forbid you put in some work watching players using the eye test, etc., to evaluate some of the things that don't show up on the stat sheet. I don't know. Maybe I'm talking crazy. Moses Brown did not drop in rating. He's the fourth string center on the Mavericks. Fourth string, and he's the highest rated center on the team. Batshit crazy. Completely unacceptable. I don't care what his stats say in 15 minutes played. That is completely unacceptable. Tristan Thompson, he's kind of been mediocre this year. His rating did not drop, and he fell behind Alex Len in the rotation. We see Alex Len, his rating went down 2 points, but his numbers are not any different from Alex Len's. So it doesn't make sense. Why is Alex Len dropping? And Tristan Thompson not, when they have the same production and one's behind the other in the rotation. I don't get it. I'm starting to rant, but the deeper we get in, like the worse some of these examples get. Here's Dwight Powell. He went up in rating, but is the starting center on the Dallas Mavericks, but could not get in over Moses Brown. Sengun went up in rating. He's been pretty solid. He's a +3 in overall rating. Blake Griffin has really struggled, so his rating, stands to reason, dropped. Daniel Tice dropped in rating. He's been subpar effectiveness, and it's possible that he might be at power forward rather than center, just based on like his block rate and his rebound rates. I haven't gotten a chance to really check out the Rockets, so I might swap Tice and Wood on these respective lists for what it's worth. Boban Marjanovic, he plays limited minutes, but when he plays, he is super effective. 30 PER, 38 usage rate. Like, there's just some teams that can't stop him at all. And I'd be okay with him having a 77 overall because he is a good player. But Moses Brown, like, come on, get the fuck out of here. The fact that Moses Brown is higher than Boban is nuts, too. Dwayne Dedmon has been really effective as the Heat's backup center, but 2K has clearly not noticed. Kevon Looney did not have a great year he's been really bad the last 2 years, but has bounced back this year. So his rating goes up. Certainly, though, he's been more effective than players like Tice, Jermichael Green, etc. Willie Hernan-Gomez has been this high for like years, but he barely plays. Similar to, I didn't touch on Enes Kanter, but he's another player who's not really in his team's rotation, but rates higher than, he's the second highest rated bench player on the team, has the same overall rating as Marcus Smart, who's the starting point guard. That's players who don't play should not have high ratings, because if you start a season, like, that's just how the gameplay mechanics work. You need the players who are not in the rotation to be lower rated than the players who are in the rotation, or else you're going to be playing against guys who aren't playing for the team. As for the rest of these guys, Jabari Parker's been great in limited minutes. as a backup 5 for the Celtics, playing ahead of Enes Kanter. I would love for Kanter to have a 73 and Parker to have the 77. And Nick Richards went up in rating, and again, 29 minutes is not too small of a sample for 2K to make adjustments. So if they're going to make adjustments for Nick Richards, think of all the other players that we've passed so far that have not gotten any adjustment whatsoever. But yeah, that was the centers. And that's going to finish things off. I ran a little longer than I think I would have otherwise liked. Let me know in the comments if you liked the positional breakdown, if you think this is a better format than doing it by team. And again, you're going to be able to find the link to the stats page in the description of this video. You can follow me on Twitter at RealToKinsider. This is where you can download my roster on the PS4. I'll try to keep this. I'm pretty sure that the 2K devs watch this content. I know one of them like shadow follows me on Twitter. He didn't follow me on Twitter, but he added me to a list of they definitely get my notes. They see my my videos that I release, because a lot of the players that I talked up, like Chris Duarte, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, etc. I think that was a big reason why they were overshot, is because of maybe they were listening to the content. I talked up Chris Duarte a lot in my videos, but don't go by things anecdotally. Like, actually look at the numbers and see how these guys are playing. And I think you can really I think this was a very useful tool for me to see like just how bad some players have been and just how good some other players have also been. So looking forward to doing this in another 2 weeks in the next roster update, when these guys will probably have like 15 games under their belt, a more reasonable sample. We can really get some idea of like whether or not Cade Cunningham, etc., what they really are going to look like as pros this year. But anywho, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.